We put the trial prosecutor from 20 years ago on the stand last month, and we cross-examined them. And he admitted that not once, not twice, but 5 times before trial, he had handled the murder weapon, which was a bloody kitchen knife, without gloves. He had been showing it to witnesses.
Bro, why? Why? I am struggling to try and wrap my head around this. So I really don't like doing videos like this. I don't like people dying. I don't like talking about the death or the murder or just in that general. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't like funerals. I don't like hearing of people who passed away, because that's just a weird like mental space for me that I don't want to go to. My sister passed years ago, and that was a lot for me, and I hate to even revisit those thoughts. You know what I'm saying? So like I really stay away from stories like this, but having a platform that I do, or at least somewhat of, you know, it's not a huge platform. I feel somewhat responsible in 2 ways. And, you know, one of them is, you know, if nobody else or if very few people are talking about the situation with Marcellus Williams, then, you know, if nobody else wants to talk about it, or very few people, what are you going to do? What are you going to talk about? You know, I want to say we all failed as Americans. It don't matter. I mean, we can make this a racial thing. Of course, I got statistics to back that up, but we don't even have to zoom in that far. Like we don't have to dig that deep. We all failed as Americans, black, white, and anything in between. We are too busy talking about Taylor Swift endorsing Trump or endorsing Kamala. Really, we are too busy talking about cats and dogs allegedly being stolen and eaten by illegal immigrants. Like we're too busy trying to figure out the race of Kamala Harris. Is she black? Is she Indian? Is she white? Is she Asian? Like, really? We're trying to find out her lineage. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how deep people are trying to get. But when it comes to the state, our broken, always been broken, as long as crooked politicians continue to run this broken system, we are going to continue to have a system that will not kill, but murder. They will straight murder innocent people. And that's not okay. I had this conversation in my Discord a while back, and we talked about this, and I changed my mind. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not married to these ideas, especially after reading some of these statistics. And hopefully, you know, I can remember to show this on the screen so you guys can see what I'm seeing. But this study reviewed from the United States General Accounting Office, death penalty sentencing in February 1990. So this is an old study, but I mean, honestly, I don't think anything has improved, but if it has, probably not by much. But it says in 82% of studies revealed or reviewed, race of the victims was found to influence the likelihood of being charged with capital murder or receiving the death penalty. I.e. those who murder whites were found more likely to be sentenced to death than those murdered by blacks. And it's just some interesting statistics here. Blacks, it says the number that were executed were 545, percentage 34. The white counterparts 889, which is 56%. But if I'm showing you the picture here, African Americans, blacks, whatever you want to call them, make up only 13% of Americans. just simple math. You ain't got to be a mathematician to understand this. 13% of the total Americans, which we got over 330 million Americans. Why? How does that math make sense? Unless you believe black people are more inherently evil and just, monsters and beasts, then yeah, that probably makes sense to you. But I mean, I can go on about this. Let's go to Mark Lamont Hill, because he kind of lays out kind of his perspective on this, and I think he brings up a lot of good points. So let's go ahead, and I didn't even set this up. Let me go ahead, click. Let's go ahead and listen.
Marcellus, he's passed. He was pronounced dead at the Potosi Correctional Center at Mineral Point about 2 hours ago. He was killed by lethal injection by the state, despite being, to me, exonerated by DNA, being factually innocent and legally not guilty. Marcellus has been killed. Marcellus Williams has been killed by the state. I hate when they say he died by lethal injection. He didn't die by lethal injection. He was killed by lethal injection. He was killed by the state. And I want to show you his last. It's on my Instagram. I put it up a few hours ago, but I want to show you his last, the sheet that he fills out. Before he dies. It's his last statement, and I need you to see it. There's an opportunity there to apologize. There's an opportunity to declare one's innocence. There's an opportunity to say and do whatever you want. And he said, Alhamdulillah, right? All praise be to Allah in every situation. This is a man who spent the last day or 2 or 3 or 5 hoping for clemency, hoping for a Supreme Court decision. Supreme Court tonight decided they wouldn't stop the execution. The Missouri Supreme Court said no. The governor said no. And Marcellus Williams is dead. I don't have a lot to say. I said a lot yesterday about this. His death is a moral atrocity. Every time this country, every time the state executes somebody, it is a moral atrocity. This state does not have the moral authority to kill anybody. This wicked state should not be killing anybody. This is a state that rapes and pillages and steals. This is a nation that has taken everything from indigenous people, taking everything from Native Americans, taking everything from our Indian brothers and sisters. This is a nation that exploited the bodies and the life and the labor of African people for hundreds of years, building this nation on slavery. This nation has killed people through medical racism. This nation has deliberately not given people the cures that they deserve. This nation has operated and experimented on the bodies of Black and brown people. This nation has shown at every turn that they don't have any moral authority. How dare we think that we have the decision-making power over who lives and who dies?
Man, I would definitely highly suggest going to Mark Lamont's Mark Lamont Hill's page, to watch the whole video. I don't want to show you his whole video. Go to his page, give him that view. But he brings up a beautiful point, and like I say, during the discussion I had in my Discord, because I was like, hey, if you're guilty, and you done something crazy like this is kind of what you deserve, and just looking at the statistics and just looking at how many people that have been declared innocent by like a lot of credible places, people, institutions, despite, evidence that's being revisited, through, better technology and just kind of digging deeper. Like, why are we still executing these people? Like I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. And I mean, a lot of it could be political reasons and this, and it's like that doesn't cut it for me. Like you said, America does not deserve in any conversation on who deserves to live and who deserves to die, knowing our track record. That's undisputable. No one with a few brain cells can look you in the eye, look me in the eye and say, hey, America has that decision. Like, you're literally an idiot if that's what you really believe. And, unfortunately, we have a lot of idiots that are in a position of power to make these decisions. Let's go ahead and go to Stephen A. Smith. Beautiful person, and it's weird that
on this particular day, if I,
once again, we don't have to make this about race, but once again, if you dig a little deeper, like the data, the statistics say otherwise. I'm not making this up. I mean, there are studies. People study this kind of stuff, and they just show the numbers. So you can argue with the numbers, but you're gonna lose the conversation. But it's just weird to me, black folks like Candace Owens, silent, not saying anything. Like, why? Like I alluded at the beginning of this video, like, we can try to figure out, Kamala Harris's race for whatever reason, but we can't talk about nothing like actually important, like why? What I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. Like, you guys can try to make that make sense, but
I seem a bit melancholy, if not downright sad, is because of where we're getting started with some news out of
let's see.
Missouri. The state of Missouri.
Once again, if you guys want to watch, definitely go to his page. But I kind of want to go to where,
It is an absolute crime. And I can't even tell you how sad I am for Marcellus Williams' family. Because he went to his death proclaiming his innocence. And he had an abundance of people and institutions supporting him. And the governor of Missouri didn't give a damn. You might be able to sleep well at night right now, sir, because you appear to have no conscience.
A soul.
We'll see how long that lasts and whether or not that truly comes back to haunt you someday. We'll see.
Damn.
We'll see. Joining me now is Mr. Jonathan Potts, Marcellus Williams' attorney at the BCPL in St. Louis, who fought to stay his execution. Thank you for joining us, Jonathan. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Take us through the last 24 to 48 hours in your efforts to stay the execution of Mr. Williams, please.
Yeah, there's been pretty much a knife fight that went on over the past 48 hours or so. We were filing briefs over the weekend with the Missouri Supreme Court, arguing it on Monday morning, and then trying to get the U.S. Supreme Court to hear the case. Ultimately, they declined, and Mr. Williams was executed last night at about 6 p.m.
Who was in attendance for his execution?
There were two members from our legal team, as well as Mr. Williams' son, Marcellus Jr., who were there to witness it.
Any members from the victim's family in attendance?
No.
Why did they not show up? Are you aware of the reasoning that they had or a reasoning that they gave for not being in attendance?
No, I don't know why they weren't there. I can imagine it's emotionally trying for them too. But the important thing to remember is that the victim's family was not in favor of executing Mr. Williams.
And why did they reach a conclusion that they were not in favor of this execution? specifically?
From the beginning, they were honoring the wishes of the victim. I want to be clear, Mr. Williams is innocent, but the victim's family has always said that no matter what happened, the victim would not have wanted anyone to be executed. Her husband didn't want anyone to be executed, and her family didn't want anyone to be executed.
The prosecutor, if I remember correctly, had a change of thinking, and they were ultimately ended up being against the execution. Is that correct? And if so, what was their reasoning and rationale behind it?
Yeah, it's even more than them just being against the execution. They were fighting to overturn the execution. We were having a trial last month where it wasn't even our team, the defense team, who filed it, but it was a new lawsuit filed by the prosecutor saying that this was an unfair and unconstitutional trial and that Mr. Williams' execution needed to be stopped.
Damn.
And they felt that it needed to be they needed the execution to be stopped because they believed that there was evidence that contradicted the guilty verdict?
Absolutely. So from the beginning, there was forensic evidence that pointed away from Mr. Williams. There were bloody footprints at the scene that didn't belong to him, didn't belong to the husband, didn't belong to the first responders. There was other forensic evidence at the scene pointing away. We found new DNA evidence on the murder weapon that didn't belong to Mr. Williams. And what further testing showed is that the DNA on the knife belonged to the original trial prosecutor 20 years ago, and he had contaminated the evidence. And frankly, it prevented us from being able to find the DNA, whoever was the real killer.
In what way was the evidence contaminated?
We put the trial prosecutor from 20 years ago on the stand last month, and we cross-examined them. And he admitted that not once, not twice, but 5 times before trial, he had handled the murder weapon, which was a bloody kitchen knife, without gloves. He had been showing it to witnesses.
Bro, why? Why? I am struggling to try and wrap my head around this. Why did this continue to happen then? I mean, it almost sounds like, you know, and I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but I mean, you know, convince me otherwise. Why did it seem like the state, the people who could have taken into consideration of everyone that seemed like they opposed the execution of Marcellus, of Mr. Williams, and they denied? Why? Honestly, it feels like they need to put out a statement on why they decided not to. I mean, I couldn't find one. I did a little search. I probably didn't search hard enough, deep enough, but I would like to know why. Because this sounds a little suspect. Not going to even lie.
Just holding it, putting his DNA all over it, and potentially wiping away any DNA from the actual killer.
And still, they went ahead with the execution. What rationale did the governor give for not pardoning him, or for not staying this execution, or anybody else for that matter?
The governor just said that he'd received due process and a decision had been made. And we obviously strongly disagree with that. He didn't receive due process. What we also learned at the hearing last month is that the trial prosecutor admitted that he got rid of at least one juror, in part because he's Black. It was a devastating thing to hear. And that alone should have stopped the execution, but it didn't.
He got rid of one juror because the juror was Black?
That is correct, Stephen. What he said, I asked him when he was on the stand, and I said, you got rid of the juror because he was a young Black man with glasses? And he said, wrong. That was part of the reason. It was because he also had piercing eyes.
Wow. I'm thinking about the predecessor to the governor that's in office right now, and how his predecessor decided to stay the execution years ago. So this governor didn't take that into consideration, evidently. And I'm wondering why that was the case. Again, I know I'm being a bit redundant in asking that question, but I find myself feeling a bit incredulous and just taken aback significantly by the fact that there was a preponderance of evidence. You've got a prosecutor that no longer supported the execution. You got the victim's family that didn't want the execution. You got DNA evidence that was compromised. You have a predecessor to the governor that's presently in office who stayed in execution, but somehow, some way, this governor decided to still go forward.
Yes, Stephen, the breadcrumbs are all there. I think any person who is following this case knows exactly what happened. And we received an outpouring of public support. Basically, everyone that we've heard from has been against the execution, except for the governor and the Missouri Attorney General. And I want to point out that what actually happened is that the prior governor stopped a prior execution just minutes before it was about to happen to appoint a special board to look into Mr. Williams' case. And then what happened is that Governor Parson actually disbanded that board before it ever gave him a recommendation about whether to give Mr. Williams a pardon or commutation of his sentence. Basically, he didn't hear the answer.
What was his explanation for disbanding that board?
Didn't give one.
He didn't give one.
Wow.
Yeah, I think enough time had passed and wasn't very interested in what he was going to hear.
How many executions have taken place in the state of Missouri in recent memory?
I believe that there are 3 executions this year, and I think it's 11 executions under the current governor.
Under the current governor?
Wow.
How many of them has been black? Do you have an answer to that question?
I don't know off the top of my head, Stephen, but your guess is probably a good one.
And where do you guys go from here? What have you learned, or what do you take from a case such as this? Because it has to be very debilitating, very, very depressing, to be quite honest with you, to know that such a preponderance of evidence has been put in your favor to stay in execution, and you have the support, the inordinate amount of support that you received, and still the execution went through. It has to be incredibly disheartening, one would imagine.
It's more than disheartening. You know, we obviously cared quite a bit about Mr. Williams. When someone's your client for many years, and you're working to try and save their life, it carries a very, very heavy emotional toll. And when you see that person put to death under unfair circumstances, you start to have doubts about the integrity of the judicial system. The important thing, though, is the reason that we take these cases on is we are trying to build back public trust in the judicial system. And the only way that you build back public trust is when that system is willing to admit its errors. Right now, the system wants to say, pretend the errors didn't happen. People don't believe that. Everyone knows mistakes are made. The only way that you're going to have the public believe that they're getting a fair trial is when you admit that a mistake was made, and you admit that mistake, you fix it, and you promise that it's never going to happen again. And that's not what happened here.
Man, once again, if you guys want to watch the whole video, I mean, it was probably only 3-4 more minutes, but I gotta admit, and like I say, you know, it feels like all of America failed on this one, and you know, I'm not, you know, hung up on, you know, the whole, you know, execution thing, because that will drive me crazy. I don't want to go down that hole there, but can you imagine? Okay, let's just do a thought experiment here, all right? Can you imagine if, you know, Kamala Harris spoken about this during the DNC? You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine if Elon Musk, you know, someone who literally owns a social media platform, can you imagine if instead of, you know, trying to post cute memes and stuff and like trying to like be cool, because we all know Elon Musk is far from being cool. Let's just pretend he was like, hey, can we talk about a real issue here? Okay, he likes to do all these polls. What if he would have put in his thought and his power, his position, his name, his money into this situation here? What would have happened? You know what I'm saying? And we just get so hung up in I don't want to blame celebrities. I don't want to do that, but if I had half the money Elon Musk have, if I had half the platform, the name recognition of some of these, you know, top-notch celebrities, that wouldn't have happened. No. Because these people, these influencers, these billionaires, they've done a lot more in terms of changing people's minds, either through their platform or, just rallying people or just buying off people. I mean, hey, money talks. We see it all the time. You give me $500,000, give me $1 million, pay me per video, I will be a Trump supporter. You know what I'm saying? Money talks. Okay, I ain't gonna even lie. Hey, don't give me millions of dollars. You know what I'm saying? Something could have changed. But I mean, we want to get hung up on just the most dumbest things, and I don't want my platform to turn into that. So but yeah, we failed. I failed, you failed, we all failed because we let another innocent man be murdered, be lynched by our flawed, imperfect, seemingly always against the people. Let them kill an innocent man. There's no other way to cut it. But once again, if you think I'm lying, if you think that the state deserves to kill whoever they want because our judicial system is perfect, and they've never done anything wrong, let me know in the comments. Like always, let's have that conversation.